This is In the Room with George and Garvin, season 4, episode 4 as well, which is interesting. We've done 4 of these. We haven't the foggiest idea what we're going to talk about, but we know that something will come in the preambles or reambles or postambles or whatever ambles that we happen to be using at this particular point in time. So,
Yeah, well, we were just talking in the preamble, and the last few words in my mind was, I'm running at a runway,
yes, that was
or
a
I
good one.
think I'm running at a runway. I don't know how long the runway is. I don't know what country the runway is in. I don't know how, what I'm doing on it in the first place. And where is that runway going? And why is it so important to get to the end of it? And even more so, you know, how do I know it's running out? And we know it's running out because I'm like 57 years of age. No matter what I do, that runway is running out.
But the thing is, let's put this into perspective. The runway needs to run out because we need to get the plane up in the air to get to the destination that we're trying to get to. So it's the fear of running out of the runway and sort of holding on to the fact that the runway should run out. We should get out of the runway and off to the next runway that we want to get to. It's a starting point. It's not an end point.
That's
It's
good.
it's,
But
it's somewhere in the middle.
I'm worried. Well, I suppose, I don't even know if I use the right words like analogy. I don't even know what analogy means half the time. I use it quite often, but I haven't looked up the definition, and I'm assuming it's what I think it is. But the runway of my life, rather than the runway of the plane, is this runway is. I'm becoming very, very more aware of it when I look at other things and programs on TV, and I see maybe I get a little bit envious of other people's successes, and mostly those successes are measured in the wrong thing. That other people might say that be it the house they have and the wealth they have, and look at those nice things they can afford. And I'm not talking about basics here, basic necessities. I'm looking at these programs where it's these multi-million-pound mansions that are just crazy, that are like hotels. And again, it is nonsense. It makes no sense to be trying to compare myself to it. But it's not that I'm comparing myself to that. I'm going, what have these other people done to achieve that? How did they get? It wasn't that I'm trying to get that, but I'm going, there's no runway I'm currently on that's going to lead to that. I don't think, but the whole thing here is, do I want to be on a runway that does? And do I want it do I want to spend that amount of time on it? And I don't. I don't. I want a shorter runway of different successes and a longer runway of life left to live and enjoy them.
I think what I'm hearing there, which is quite interesting, is that maybe you've bought the wrong ticket and you're on the wrong plane going to the wrong destination and you're still trying to make your mind up. So you haven't actually got onto the runway yet to take off because
Yeah.
you're still wondering, should I go to this destination? Should I go to that destination? I know that destination is not going to do me any good, so I don't really want that one. And maybe that's a good thing because I think if we're not concerned about where we want to go, and I think we do know where we want to go because we've been working on this. We've actually been building the plane to take off. We're in the pre-trials for launching ourselves, the test flights, and we're just worried about how many test pilots we're going to out of. And the other thing that's happening more recently, which I'm starting to think, was a second plane this week basically hit a pocket of air or something that wasn't there, and the plane fell a certain distance for about 20 seconds. And it reminds me of quite a few years ago for my birthday, because you're talking about birthdays. My wife got me a ticket to go on a microlight for an hour, going around the Nuri Peninsula and various other bits and pieces. We probably traveled about 50, 60 miles in it. And I'm sitting there kind of going, she doesn't want me to have a motorbike, but she's giving me a flight in a plane that is not quite made of strings, but felt almost as there was fabric sort of holding us in kind of thing as we flew. It was an enclosed plane, and I took a lot of pictures. But when I was given the controls, it was kind of going, "Oh my goodness, if I go the wrong way, I'm going to flip this plane over, and it's going to do a dive or something stupid." So although there was kind of fear in there, it was exhilarating as a journey to go on as well. But it made me kind of think, do I really want to be up there flying a little plane like this? And you did hit those pockets. There were occasionally as you went along, the plane suddenly went boom, and you went, what was going on there? He said, "Oh, we just hit an air pocket or something." It's just that, or the pressure there was lighter than it was elsewhere, so there's nothing to hold the plane up. And it was literally as though you'd gone into a vacuum and went bump down a few hundred feet. So those are kind of tricky things. And I suppose we're trying to work out, because that's something that's quite serious in what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that what the plane is fit enough to actually cope with those little drops every so often, that we've thought through all the risks that we need to think about. But we are being hit by other things that the unknowns are hitting us, and we're trying to prepare for what we don't know. But sometimes we just have to let go. In outside in the garden, we have a few young starlings, and the mothers have been going off and getting them worms. And then there comes a point where they say, right, it's about time you learn to fly yourself. Out you go. And if they hit the bottom, oh, well, that's one less mouth to feed. We'll go with another one. And luckily, most of them do take off and they find their wings and they settle, go off finding their mum to see if she can give us some worms. And then she's trying to get, okay, give us the worms, give us the worms. Just no, no, no. You've got to go and start pecking them yourself. You've got to learn. So it's part of that sort of teething problem. I know your son was out learning to drive a car. I don't know about you, but my first lesson on a car was to be given a plate and sort of work out how to go around before I was let into the car. And the number of gears that went and crunched, and you kind of went, oh dear. And all the problems that sort of trying to get to learn how to drive a car. And here I am now, 40, maybe 50 years later, not quite 50, but about 45 years later after that first lesson. And it doesn't fizz a bit. We just go out in the car. We don't even think about the problems that are going to happen or possibly happen, but we're equipped with enough experience to know how to handle most situations as long as we're alert when we're going out driving. That's
No,
what we've
that's
got to do.
that's interesting. While you were talking there, I heard I've got a ticket to ride. What we have is we're born with a ticket to ride. If we get to go on the merry-go-round, it's great. Some of them go on the merry-go-round, and others go on the roller coaster. We're talking about taking a plane and going off to these destinations, and they're further afield and far-flung places. But the thing here is we have a ticket to ride, and it's you need to get it stamped, and I need to go on those journeys now. Whereas my ticket's been punched a couple of times over the years. I haven't gone too far afield. I've went to England. I've visited America maybe on a holiday, and I spent a year in Australia. I didn't go to every corner of the planet. I'm not no wanting or grow to do that. Others might have. My daughter does. She wants to go see every part of the planet before she settles in to work. I'm back into this runway path of maybe a singular destination with a couple of holidays in between, but you settle down and you get a mortgage and you have 2.3 kids, and or you get married in whichever order, or maybe you don't. But what's starting to happen, I suppose, where I am in my life is I'm becoming aware of the amount of runway left. And it's not that we're going to take off before we hit the end of it. No, I'm not. It's not. I'm not worried. It's the runway of life. And are we doing the right thing? Actually, no, it's more to stay on the runway. I think what's starting to happen is there's so many distractions preventing me getting the speed to continue on the runway at the right speed and the right amount of time that's left on that to use and consume it with the right energy levels. I'm distracted by what's out the window. I'm looking from one side to the other, and I'm getting distracted every 5 minutes, and that's where tick lists come in handy. You might give yourself a little tick list for the day and go, here's a couple of things for the day you need to get done. If there's a major one in there, great. Yeah, it's meant to be the majors and not the minors. I mentioned that in one of the last podcasts. I have lists of minors all over the shop, but even those little minor ones are more because I'm easily distracted and I just need to tick a few little boxes. I've got something done today, and I could see the big one on the list, but I haven't. That's my runway. It keeps on bringing me back to focus on it to go, okay, I haven't done something about it. Oh, I thought about it. I did maybe done a little towards it, and that's great. But I think I need that written something on the wall or beside me, to keep on reminding me, which runway you're on, how far there's left to go on it, and to stay true and stay focused and stay committed, and with enough energy and resource to do that targeted something that you've given yourself that you feel that has a meaning for yourself and others around. Hopefully, the others around you have those similar meanings. I think most of the issues over all the last years or the years gone is most people have are clueless, and including myself, for years upon years, as to what runway should I be on? Should I be on a runway? Where am I going? No idea. Forgot my ticket. Where is it? Who do I hand it to get stamped? It's absolute, and we're just running around a foreign airport and no idea where we're going. And that's the problem here for me. Most of my life is I have a ticket to ride, but it's a magical mystery tour. I don't know which plane I'm going to get onto, and no one speaks the same language.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I was thinking about there was that if we change the runway to a set of railway tracks, because that was what was coming to me, was that, and that's actually important because the railway tracks stay right through to the destination. But with the runway, there's a possibility of flying off in all kinds of different directions and never getting to the destination. And what you're actually doing is you're trying to stabilize that process to allow you to keep the focus that you need to make sure that you can accomplish the goals that have been set. But also in order to be able to deflect any of those things of everyday life that come along to try and knock you off balance. Still able to incorporate some of that, but not enough that it does just derail you. Because one of the things I think that's although there was this sense in several of the podcasts that you want to go off in a big those big trucks rambling across the landscape, in many ways that becomes such a bumpy ride, and you could easily sort of get a puncture and not get to your destination, and actually be what's the word, isolated and really lost on that journey because you've gone into the wilderness. Whereas to keep on track, you're building the tracks to allow you to meet the goals that you want to the end of the line. And what you're trying to do is to make sure there's enough track ahead of you so you can actually keep on going. Because there is this sense of, does the track run out? Whereas the runway, yes, runs out because the plane has to take off. But with the track, it needs to keep on going so you can get to that destination. But it also means to be on solid ground. So there's preparation to make sure those tracks. So in a way, you could see yourself as a track layer that's constantly laying the tracks down so you can actually move forward and achieve the goals that you want. But you need those parameters to work within to allow you to accomplish that. And without those parameters, everybody becomes so, which way do I go? There's too many options. There's too much. I don't know what to do because everything keeps changing. But if you can build that structure that we're trying to do to allow us to keep on building the tracks to move forward, then we will actually accomplish the goals that we want to achieve.
Well, what was very nice there now was I heard I and I heard we.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the strange thing is, words that jumped into my mind in terms of what's going on. Oh, well, not in a day, in a week, or past gone by, but on a continual, ongoing basis, popping up and then going back into the for background is, you know, how to isolation and motivation. I think I'm recognizing out there in the social media world an awful lot of isolated people
yeah,
that will probably feel the same. No, not feel the same. It's not about an emotion, or it's more going, I don't know where I'm going. So that's an I. It's like, and you're treating yourself as being isolated and going, when actually you might already be a family and there's already a we involved. And then the motivation aspect is that, like I said, it's the motivation to keep on going is I think is more and more difficult for people if they're an I and not a we.
yeah,
Because I think you said many a time in many a podcast before that, when one is up, the other could be down. And you might be both at the same speed and energy levels at the same time, sometimes based on a particular goal or focus. And again, we do wane with different energy levels, based on what might be coming in from the side in family life, work, or other work life, or just friends and family and foes, whatever is out there, and the world and how it interacts we interact with it. So things might make us feel isolated, even though when people are looking from afar, they see you being busy, they think what they see is motivation and a drive. But what could be there is you're putting yourself in front of a computer screen and you're actually isolated in the social media feed that we mentioned in the last show, feeding it with your runway of time, and you're not actually doing anything, you're not actually achieving anything, you're being consumed. You're actually, it's nearly a self-consumption of sorts. So, I mean, I think what I was really getting at the beginning of the runway aspect is to go, it's to be this, to be motivated in running, not running away. Funny, it's a, there's a run way. It's where are you, which way are you running? And like, are you running or are you walking? Doesn't really matter. But most of the time, I feel most of us don't know where we're going. And it's that's the focus. It's the I needs to become a we, to be moved from isolation to motivation to find a way maybe to run. You
Well, I
know?
think a lot of the activities that I'm finding that I'm getting involved with is incorporating other people. And yes, they are all feeling isolated. They're feeling disconnected from community, disconnected from family at times, and and also that everything else is that's being fed into them from social media and other aspects is putting fear into them. We've lived for the last 20 or 30 years in a state of fear and panic, and everything that keeps happening kind of implies that there's a panic about to happen and we need to prepare and defend ourselves against this panic. But that's actually then eating up all your resources to put in place a defensive mechanism to try and cope with it, as opposed to switching off from that and starting to say, well, look, I've gone through 20, 30 years. The things that we were frightened of 20, 30 years ago didn't actually happen. Um, yes, there's the threat of war. There's been a threats of wars from goodness knows how long I can remember. But if you carry on and say, well, look, here's some of the things that I would like to do, and you know, we've said before, we need to make sure that we provide for our families. Um, and again, there could be in the way the world's looking that it kind of implies that we're not doing that. But if we look around the evidence that we both have, uh, I have a house, you have a house. We've managed to, through thick and thin, keep that secure. We have our partners, our wives, who are also working away to try and meet that goal. Sometimes I'm the main provider of income. Sometimes my wife's the main provider of income. And we have to adapt and change to those things. But one of the things that's been very clear through me encouraging my wife is that she had those same kind of fears that you're talking about. Uh, but through nurturing, she's actually managed to achieve quite a lot. There are fears in the current job. And through gentle chat as a team, uh, she's begun to realize that some of the things that she was, the catastrophizing isn't actually necessary. If she keeps on doing, she will be guided. And I think that brings us back to that kind of spiritual aspect that we are actually guided within that. And if we can feel secure in that, it's the insecurities of feeling isolated and feeling lonely and feeling sort of left behind and feeling that I'm redundant because I've become an older person and now the world feels that we're useless. But in reality, we all have skills, and my skills complement your skills. That means I don't need to replicate your skills. You don't have to replicate mine. But because we can actually work in that team environment, we can move things forward along the journey. And there's a lot of effort that we've put into 5 years because we were building those tracks to go forward. Even the runner, because you talked about the runway, the difference between the runner and the aircraft is the fact that the runner actually does have a track. They have a course. The long distance runner has, they may work at a slower pace, but they have a journey. The marathon runner had 26 miles he had to achieve, and he had to run at a certain pace so that unlike a sprinter, if he ran like the sprinter, he would have expelled all his energies and he would never have actually achieved the 26 miles. So he had to pace himself at the right pace to be able to be there for the long run. And that's what we're doing. It's pacing ourselves. We know how much energy we can expend each day. We know we have limitations. We also know that we have to take breaks. Breaks are just as important as the flurry of work, because if you keep on flurrying of work, you'll break down. The car needs a break every so often to refuel and to get its energy going. And if you constantly use even the car, it'll wear out sooner than that it should have done. So we have to pace everything to make sure that journey is attainable and can work. And I think because we're taking that kind of slow down approach, bit like the tortoise. We will actually achieve the goals we want to because we've got the energy levels we need to keep on sustaining ourselves. Unfortunately, the hare in that particular story expended his energies too quickly, was full of pride, thinking that he'd reached his goal sooner, thought he had the time to actually relax. Whereas in actual fact, he was burnt out. So he fell asleep and the tortoise was able to overtake him. We're in that kind of scenario with what we're doing. We can see all around us that people are panicked into trying to do things. They're getting burnt out with what they're doing and the methods they're using. Whereas we keep working. We've applied the principles in our films, the two films we've done so far, even in the podcasts. Even this hour or so, we've realized that we've got the methodology worked out. We can simplify it, so it makes it simpler and easier for us to do. We were expending maybe too much energy in doing what we were doing with the podcast before. Now we're restricting that. We're not trying to do all the fancy stuff. And I think what's happening is that we're now being given a chance to talk things through, even if it's just in the podcast, because I know that I've listened to the last couple of podcasts and I don't normally listen to them once. I normally spend so much time working on preparing them that I'm actually worn out and I don't want to listen to them. Whereas what's happening now is that I'm actually sitting down and watching them and listening to them and kind of getting the value out of that kind of reflective approach that we're getting. So this does allow us to get a record of what we're doing, but also helps us nudge us forward as we go along that journey, as we build the tracks, even if it's a single runner, so that we know that we can achieve the goals that we want to because we're pacing ourselves at the right way.
Now, what's interesting there is we're talking about reflecting. We've recorded ourselves so we can listen back and reflect on things that we've said already that we might have already forgotten. And do we actually, the strange thing is, do we still believe what we said? Why did we say what we said? Like most of the time might just be as a reaction to what the other person was saying, and that was the next part of the conversation based on a thought that came to mind. But it's based on your computing power in your head and what's going on subliminally in there, and has been going on in their case for in excess of 50 years apiece. That those answers are reflect, I think, a reflection of yourself and your opinions and well-informed opinions on those particular subject matters. So therefore, you more than likely believe in what you said. Now, I put a more than likely in there, but I believe what I say, I believe in it. And when I listened back, similarly, like George said, he listened back to the shows. I've listened to the shows as well. Maybe didn't maybe hear what George said a bit more, or maybe see what I was saying, or well, see what I was saying as opposed to hear what I was saying. It's I believe what I have been saying in the last few shows is I'm no longer the imposter. I am, worried about the future for myself and others, but not overly so. From that show, I was thinking to myself, I need to be dealing less with negative people and be more positive and don't let the negative take me away. It's not my job to change others. It's not my job to basically, fix other negatives. It's only my job to be as positive as I can be and not overfeed it valuable time. And I said, or in my case, I would have been that disaster, that like catastrophizer. So I'm immediately a go-to catastrophizer. I have to be more aware of that. I am becoming quicker to realize that that's what my nature normally was and is, to maybe try and change that to go, it's not the end of the world. Well, it might be if Putin has his way, but it's not at the moment. Therefore, certain things can be fixed, they can be built upon. You could go talk to a friend, you can get more information, you can get more educated on something to move forward if you're blocked. So, and the I has in all those cases is nearly becoming a we of sorts. So I do believe the more we, the better. In everything and anything I do going forward, be it family, friends, and work colleagues, it needs to be discussed. There needs to be a conversation going on. And there needs to be an agreement, of you define that balance in between that makes the difference to move forward, as opposed to what sometimes is two negatives that gets aggressive. And we're both being pulled down our individual silos of basically nonsense. And what's being consumed is the runway of time. And nothing is being achieved and nothing is being done. And therefore, I have to recognize those things faster. And that's why I realize less catastrophizing, less negativity, less envy. I mean, the social media machine is just shown, the universe has shown me things. This can be you. It could have been you. Why isn't it you? It's not making you feel good. It's not making anyone feel good because then you start giving it time and excuses and wondering why and coulda, shoulda, woulda, what woulda if I had done something. Yeah. No, you can't change the past. You've got some runway left. Don't be envious of others. More likely than not, others, if they looked at what you had, would be envious of you because that's a false something most of the time. If that's what you're measuring, then that's not a measure of happiness. That's a thing. That's an item. We were talking about us ourselves being functions in the last show where we go, I'm not an accountant. I'm me, and this is my family. These are my friends. This is my we, and it's not the who makes a difference, not the what. I believe now going forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, what's really useful about us recording this, and you've said it several times that maybe we're the only audience, but that's important as well because one of the reasons why counseling is important and mentoring and coaching is important is because most those are talking therapies, because they allow people to talk out where their fears are, what their issues are, and you've got into that. Even this session, that last little block that you've just talked about, you've actually shared with the audience and with ourselves the fears that you have, and those fears are genuine fears that everybody has. But what we're now doing is we're now producing the evidence through these shows, through the films that we've done, through the canvases that you're now putting. That's evidence that we have done something. There's been something practical achieved. And some of the goalposts that some of the destinations on the line have actually been reached and we've gone past them. So it's not that we've gone nowhere. We've gone somewhere because we've met some of those targets that we've actually set ourselves to achieve. They may have taken longer than we expected, but we can recalibrate knowing that that's the case to again go back to that pace ourselves. But the importance of these kind of conversations, and you've said that several times before, that we should have recorded some of the other ones that we're having, purely because there was things that we were talking about that we if our memories are being cluttered by other things that are going on, having the opportunity to listen back to these shows allows us to refresh our mind about what we were thinking of because it's coming from our own voice. And I mean, that's the one thing most people don't like the sound of their voice because they don't hear it the way they normally hear it in their heads. But quite often, if we get a chance to see and hear how we react in certain situations, in conversations, we can start to learn and start to realize I don't need to be running ahead at 60 mile an hour when I could actually be slowing down at 40 mile an hour. And people can understand better what I'm talking about because I'm not frantically trying to get information out to them. And also, I think one of the lovely things that's happening now, especially with the journey that we've both been on, is I think we've both got to a certain point where we realize that we don't need to give out as much information as we had been because we thought everybody needed all that information to be able to see the picture. And what we were actually doing was blinding them with lots of information. Whereas now, if we reduce that information and make it clearer and more succinct and keep it simple, small and simple, I prefer that's a positive way of looking at that KISS word, is because we're not stupid. That's something that people keep adding in there. But if we keep it keep it small and simple, then we can get that message across. And we've been working at trying to make sure we can put that message across in all the things that we're doing. And I know through constantly talking and with other people and testing it out, I'm becoming more confident that every time I talk to someone, that I'm actually inspiring them to want to get involved in the activities that we're doing because they see it as a way of getting on the journey that they want to be on, whereas they felt disempowered and isolated. They needed someone to come in and give them that lift in a simple way that allows them to believe that it's possible what they're actually trying to achieve. And one thing I'm talking about at the moment is even just simply rosary, even tying knots, making little knots. There are people that were just kind of struggling to understand how to make this simple little knot. But because we've taken their mind and focused on that knot, how do you create it so it tightens these beads up? They're no longer worrying about all the stuff that's outside. They're actually starting to enjoy and open up. We know that if we get people to come and look at how to set a camera up, how to start recording sound, how to even look at the activities within the script to how to interpret that, if we can slow them down, that becomes their focus for the day or week or the 6 weeks, their mental health will actually be a lot better because they're no longer thinking about themselves. They're no longer internalizing. They're now working with a team of other people to help solve a problem that they can all see that was mapped out. In other words, all the different stops along the way of the journey have been mapped out through what we're doing so that they can have a good journey. And we're making sure that, they have that journey that we expect them to have, that, and they can relax and just enjoy going on that and just experience what happens along the way.
Well, what's interesting there again is about like I'm putting all these that all these interesting. That was interesting. This is interesting. I shouldn't be putting it in, but what the hell? That's me, and that's it. And there's
It's
no editing it
inspiring
out.
you. It's inspiring you.
Exactly. I find that interesting. But what I heard again was it's initially I was hearing the show don't tell. We've done all the telling. We're not telling anyone anything anymore because telling is been nearly autocratic, nearly
Mm,
speaking down to or at. We're telling you what to do. No, we're showing you. Not even going to tell you what to do. We're showing you what we're doing. So, and what I'm doing, or on a daily basis, and what George is doing. So, we're not going to tell anyone anything. We're going to show them what we're up to. We're
mm.
going to show, and even at that case, that little conversation you had there was saying the more we can get someone to be in the now, and someone as ourselves, then the more we focus on the moment and become present, then everything, these distractions and catastrophizing and everything else, and those worries all leave. They disappear into the ether because we're only in the moment of the now. And we're focused and we're present and it's that film being there. We're going to be there and doing and showing. And if there's someone else there, well, the showing we're talking about is we're capturing information. We might have it in video, and we're able to show someone in front of us or show someone after the fact that this is us focusing on a moment and moving away from catastrophization and envy and others because that's just the wrong thing. It's disempowering. It's not empowering. So and it's not motivating. Watching these programs, I think an awful lot on social media, people are watching motivational somethings that actually probably would have the opposite effect of
Mm.
making them feel less fulfilled and questioning why have they got so little and why am I more motivated, and if I motivate myself will I achieve that, and if he did motivate themselves a little bit and didn't achieve an inkling of that, then it's going to hurt them doubly. So I think there's you can't just dip in and out for the moment. These motivational things that are out there are saying you've got to be motivated and committed to a timeline of energy of pathway of to achieve anything like or even a portion of anything we're talking about. Just be that's the thing that whole visibility and can actually be overwhelming to even to start to be motivated can actually be demotivating to some, and that some is sometimes me. If that makes sense.
Because what they're actually doing is they're giving somebody such an overwhelming task to
Yeah.
achieve that they find that they have to use all their energies constantly to try and reach that goal that they've actually set. And it almost becomes an impossibility because it is so overwhelming. And that's why most of us kind of go, how do I fit this in? How do I fit that in? Because we're overwhelmed by the information that we're being hit with. And I think we're coming to a point where we need to really simplify things. The world has got so complicated and everything's overly complicated. There's people scheming about things to try and because they're scared that if they don't, they'll lose their jobs. And how do we secure that? And how do we secure this? And again, I think we've looked at in the past that you were talking about people, becoming jealous of people that become famous and people who have got lots of money and they can do different activities. But quite often, the more money you get, the more worry you have in case somebody's, again, they catastrophize that someone's going to rip them off with all that money. And we've seen that with people that are winning lotteries with massive amounts of money. All of a sudden, there's all these people to come in to advise them how to use their money so it becomes more product. And those people have never had a life that they've had to think about that. And it's become so overcomplicated that they become depressed in their own wealth. Whereas I think what we need to realize is wealth is not money. Wealth is the way you lead your life and the way you approach different people, the way you try to, help them. Because again, part of what we're doing, what motivates me is that we're helping other people see another way of doing something that they love, but they can't see a way forward. And the obstacles have always been money. Trying to accomplish some of if we'd gone out, as you said before, to try and get funding from these different funding bodies, we would still be stuck trying to make the first film that we made, not thinking about two or three feature films and a couple of other shorts, which is what we're doing. Even the podcasts, if we were worried about how were we going to fund the podcast, we wouldn't have done all the podcasts we're doing. And now we're into a fourth series. We're into episode 4, which we'll go on. We will keep on doing because we found a simpler, more effective way of doing it. We're not worried about the cost because we're realizing that this is allowing us to talk through issues that we're having, that other people are having, which shows that we have a commonality with other people. We understand the problems that they're having. And if we're not offering solutions either, and I think that's something that also comes out of counseling. It's not offering a solution, but through talking things through and experimenting and trying things out and using critical thinking, because I think that's what we're also doing, you can start to analyze things to say, well, look, if I did this small thing this way and it didn't work, or I made a mistake, and as opposed to torturing yourself because you made that mistake, by admitting that we've made a little mistake, we can actually say, well, actually, if we do it this way instead of that way, that problem won't happen again. So we need to be able to test things, and that's a very important part of learning, is trying things out and testing. We also need to have the opportunity to see opposite views, which I think Garvin and I have with most things that we do. But the great thing is that because we have another way of bouncing those ideas, um, we can see blind spots that we each have by reflecting upon them and having the chance to see these recordings. We can see how we've misunderstood things because one of the things that I find quite amazing is the fact that human beings can communicate to one another. I mean, we have 2 ears to listen and a mouth to talk and the body languages that are going on. One of the amazing things that even if we speak the same language is how confusing we can get if people don't understand, if we half understand what's being said. But we've got to a certain point through listening that we understand how the other person operates and we can work with them. And again, in the last show, the word about functional, I suddenly got a great insight listening to what Garden was saying was what he actually meant by that. And although I might have initially taken offense because I was being seen as a functional person, I began to realize, no, I don't want to be seen as a functional person. And that, I do the things I need to do to accomplish the goals I do, but I want to get to the point where it'd be nice to have other people doing those. And even some of the activities I'm now working at, other people are taking over to do those tasks and activities. As long as I just show them and nudge them along in the directions that they want to go, they feel as though they're accomplishing their goals. And I think that's something that we've both been doing for each other because you've allowed me to realize some of the film ideas that I've got. Um, and even in the project GVH, which was somebody else's idea, your idea, I had a chance to be creative within the frames, that we set up for that, even doing the music, even doing the cinematography, so that we could accomplish those goals. The nice thing would be to get to the next step where we're working with other people who may be doing the cinematography, maybe doing the sound, doing the editing, handing that to somebody else. I've got my experience, I can nurture them and encourage them, but get them to feel that they've accomplished something, they've accomplished their dream by giving them an opportunity. Katie in acting, getting a chance to act, you getting a chance to act, and Dexter having the opportunity to be in a in a role as well and seeing other opportunities, and even Dominic, who'd normally being doing extra parts, suddenly having a major role in a film where he's he's one of the big contributors to that film, and now starting to win awards for, all of them starting to win awards for things that they never thought they could do, but now we've given them an opportunity to do. And that is a wealth. There's a richness in that opportunity that goes beyond money. I mean, money can come and go. I don't know about you, but every time I get a few pounds, it goes very quickly. Money is just a transit. It's a vehicle for getting one place to another. It's the same as the track and the aircraft. If you've got it, then you have to use it. If you try to hoard it, all that's going to happen is it's going to rot away. So it's only a transitory thing. But the riches that we're building up are of the experiences that we have. They're investments that we're making in our time and effort that is worthwhile, and nothing is lost. It's the same with physics. Energy may transfer from one thing to another, but it's never ever lost. You can always trace where it's actually going. And even from a spiritual perspective, that's the same thing as well. Nothing's actually lost. You just have to trust in what you're doing and have faith, because it's a belief that we have, that we've got something that is worthwhile working with. And we actually trust that we are going on a journey. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have faith in that thing that we believe in that will see us to the end. And we will have an accomplishment through the efforts that we're putting into. And regardless of what's going on around us that seems very bleak and negative, I do believe that we will accomplish things, and the people that will come on the journeys with us, because that's really what it's all about. We're creating the vehicle for them to go on the journey so they can buy the ticket. Um, they will actually feel it was a well worthwhile experience for them, and that their life has been enriched in far better way than hoarding the money they think they might have saved.
Well, strange thing is you're stuck in the money aspect of, okay, we were talking about it, I've got a ticket to ride, but now you're saying you better buy a ticket to ride. So I mean, no, we want others to buy the ticket to ride, and that little buy is not necessarily the money aspect, but buy in to the ride, to buy into the journey, get away from where you already are, which is which could be nowhere. That's the strange thing. You're not in the right place, but you're still being consumed by it. We all have been like, that's what we give up to get where we want to go. But if we don't know where we're going and we don't know what we want, then we're giving up an awful lot more than we should be. So what's really happening now is I've got a ticket to ride. I've bought into the journey. We're very, very focused on where we're going. We're doing an awful lot of show and less tell, or we'll tell people where to look so we can show them and let them actually tell them that they can come along too. And that's what we want. And even if it's not on our journey, it's more to maybe listen into this show and realize everybody is thinking similarly. We don't know I don't think anyone out there really knows what they're doing. And what are they doing? They might be doing what others believe to be something very successful in their eyes, but most of those people will be going, that's something they did while looking for what they wanted to do, and they didn't. And they still haven't found it. They might be lacking on family, they might be lacking on friends, they might have the wealth or the health, or they might be lacking on health. Well, it's nobody gets to win across all the realms of sort, but I've got some. There's a little bit of the ride left. We're on a good path, and like we're doing. I definitely want to show more, and I want to tell more people about what it is we're doing, and I want to keep on doing it. So it's to get that moving away from the isolation to the motivation
Mm.
is true the we and the commonality of communicating with others that you find a common goal and a common journey to go on and enjoy spending time with others while doing stuff. I think it is.
Well, I mean, one of the things that came up as we were discussing was this: there's a reason why there is an award in Northern Ireland, and I think across the UK, called investing in people. Because I think the more we invest in ourselves, or invest in the conversations, because the isolation comes when you've only got yourself to talk to. We are social beings, and we need to have those kind of conversations. And when in each of the environments that we've created where people have had a chance to get together, they've done the day's work, and then they get a chance to chat in the evening, and they get a chance to share some of their aspirations and some of their dreams and some of those things as well. We're if we're being forced into a system that constantly wants us to be productive as it produces the idea, what they're doing is they want to isolate us into flat factory type floor environments or isolate us into little cells where we don't communicate. The greatest thing that we have as people is to communicate our ideas and our aspirations and what we believe in, because that's something that's really, really important. Believing in something like we're believing in this project is very, very important because that's where your passion then comes from. It's going to be a hard graft. It's not going to be easy. There are going to be setbacks. But when you get a chance to talk to other people about it and share that, you can see that, well, they can comment back because they see the evidence of how enthusiastic you are about what you're doing. And I think that's a really, really good thing. So it's encouraging that investment in people and also wanting to spend time with people to allow them to share by talking and communicating and discussion is really, really important. And I think if we lose those kind of conversations, that's where things, well, that leads to madness because all you're doing is talking to yourself. And that's no good because you're not learning from yourself. You need other people to actually learn from. And that's why we need to go on this kind of journey that we're going. So I think even if we are the only audience, it still gives us an opportunity to hear back from ourselves and from each other what our plans were, and it will keep us on track on the journey that we want to get to reach the goal. Which and the goal is only it's only a stop on the way. That first goal of having people to come and join us for the first time, where they bought their ticket, it's only the first station. There are other stations that we have planned further on. So, and we will get there because we've gone on the track, we've set the sails forward, and we know what we want to achieve. And by keeping focus on that, not giving up, not getting distracted by the things that are happening on either side, and not panicking, not catastrophizing, because all of us can do that. And I think I mentioned somewhere on the line, I'm not sure if it was in the show or with the preamble, that when I'm frightened of something, I think we were talking about my computer actually. My computer blew out at one point, and I exhausted all the people that I could talk to about who could fix it, but I'd done everything they could, and they gave up. I had to put the screaming voice of me on the side and just sort of put them into a little room if that's what, and so that I wouldn't be distracted by myself and just sat there and focused on getting done what I need to do. I know later on today I'm going to have to do that with my accounts, but we have all those things that are well worthwhile that need to get done. You have to blink yourself and just go for it like the racehorse and see the end goal and just go for it. And that's the important part of the journey I think that we're on. We're probably coming up close to the end. So I'll let Garvin say a few last words and then I'll just give a little roundup.
Well, I don't even know what I'm going to say anymore. I'm going to go wee, wee, wee all the way home. But I'm all actually, home is where the heart is. And strangely enough, I'm already there. And the thing is to sometimes you're spending an awful lot of time trying to leave home and go out and do something so you can get back home
Yeah,
in the first place.
yeah,
So there's this, and that's usually led by this, information or coming from social media and the outward universe going, you need to be doing something else. You should be doing this. You should be motivated to do that. But if you're happy where you are and you're happy in doing what you're doing and happy at home, then why do you have to go out?
yeah,
Unless you feel there's something missing. And that's the weird thing. Is there an emptiness? Is there something missing? Is there an unhappiness? And sometimes I've felt happy and something convinced me that you couldn't possibly be and you shouldn't be because I am and or this isn't, and that's not normal. So what makes you happy is what you're searching for, and it might be totally different to someone else, and therefore don't. If you're happy in yourself and you're happy and you know it, I don't know where that came from, then everything is okay. You don't need to prove it to someone else and don't do something else because the machine requires it. Stay doing the do, be one with yourself, be happy in in your surroundings, and spread out, to encompass more and others maybe, but you don't need to go away to come back.
No. I think, I mean, and the interesting thing is that a lot of novels that you will read talk about a character wanting to get away from where they were and constantly feeling that they should be elsewhere. And it was only when they end up coming back home that they realize that that's where they should have been in the first place. That idea that the greener fields are over there somewhere, and when you get over there and look back, you suddenly see these greener fields over here, and you want to come back. That's the. But I think you're right. I mean, I love where we are. And what I started to realize was it's not about going hundreds and hundreds of miles away to find somewhere. I mean, I've traveled from England to Ireland, but I've spent 40 years in Ireland, and I've now spent 28 years living where I live. And I like the trips away because I think they're important to go and see, but I love getting back home. So because I know that the trips away are only temporary, because I'll get back home to where I feel comfortable. And sometimes those comfort zones, they're actually important because they're where you do feel safe, you do feel a bit more secure. Um, Maybe that's an illusion in itself, but the thing is that you then start to realize, well, actually, around me are the people I like being with. I like communicating with them. I don't have to go as far as I should do. Why should you travel that far? And the more you then invest in the people around you, in the communities that you live in, you suddenly start to realize, well, they appreciate the fact that you've not run away and you've not gone elsewhere, and you're there to support them and encourage and nurture them. So that's a very important thing. And I think that's also where, having gone from a world where we constantly had to move from one house to another because the job took us there, because the houses were tied to the jobs, to suddenly finding that life as I got on could be more secure by realizing what you have is more important than what you don't think you have. And also listening to those voices that sort of try to unnerve you. Those are ones that you need to shield away, which is really good because at the very beginning we said we didn't know what to say. Garvin, you talked a lot about those distracting voices that try to knock you off balance and try to make you feel insecure about things. And you realize that really where you are is where you feel most secure, you feel most happy, you've got what you want. The success of the each of us has is what we have here in the now, where we live, where we are. It's not, we may not be rich, we may not be famous, but we don't need to be, and neither does anybody else. Most people that end up becoming famous, they then start to say that it's a fallacy because you become a slave to a system that actually robs you of your time, stops you from enjoying what you think. And I know from several things I've read, that some of the rich, very, very rich, they end up becoming imprisoned in their richness because in the materials, so they end up seeing less and less people. Whereas we, being us, have a freedom to go where we want to go without being recognized, without being known. And we can have amazing conversations and allow people to chat, which is part of what we're doing, is letting those people that are also unknown, and we get a chance to see people that we never would have had a chance to do so that we can learn a bit more about them. And it's in those conversations that we actually learn. And I think that's something we will blossom out into, I think, as we go on with our podcasts, because we'll start to one to one. I think the one to one conversations are really quite good because then it's not a competition. And we'll start to find some interesting people that we can talk to on this show, and they'll want to talk to us, and they'll want to talk to us individually because we each have something else that we can contribute to them, make them see things from a different perspective. And I think that's a great journey to go on as well. So I love the thing that we were talking about, the runway. We talked about, was it important to get off the runway to get to the next destination, or do we need the runway to keep on building? We then started to talk about, actually maybe it's a railway track, because the railway track means that we can put down a stable foundation of where we're actually going. And even the marathon runner still has a track to run along, a course that they've actually got to follow. And what we've also talked about is the fact that maybe the first aims that we have is just the next station that we're trying to get to. And once we do get there, we've got another station to go, but we'll be able to refuel at that station to make sure we can get in the next part of the journey. So having the brakes is also important. We talked about that. that if we overwork ourselves, we'll just run out of track and we'll actually burn ourselves out. And we don't want to go off track because then we could get lost in the wilderness. So those are things that we actually discussed in this episode, laying down tracks and staying at home.
There you
Isn't
go.
it
My
interesting?
last little bit is I'm happy to be a Dorothy because there's no place like home.
Absolutely. There is
Hey,
no place like home. That's a great way to end. Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, or whatever you're doing. If you want to like, that's great. If you want to put thumbs up or recommend us to other people, that'd be brilliant. If you want to talk to us, why not get in touch with us? There'll probably be some details somewhere that you can get in touch with us. We're the Film Production Academy. There is a website for us there as well, and you'll find details of us there also. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
thanks a lot. Bye bye.